No glossy commercial this time, just an empty departure gate in Amsterdam, a football scarf draped over an unclaimed seat, and a flight to the United States that took off this summer with rows nobody filled. Here is the number that should stop you cold. The dollar is weaker against the euro this year. The trip should be cheaper than it has been in years. And yet European flight bookings to the United States this summer are down 14% compared to the same period last year. People who could afford this trip more easily than ever are choosing, in large numbers, not to take it. In the Netherlands, 174,000 citizens signed a formal petition asking their own parliament to keep the national team home. The Dutch Federation's response was careful, almost painfully careful. They said the Netherlands would not boycott. Adding the phrase "so far," two words doing an enormous amount of work for an organization that did not want to commit to anything beyond the immediate moment. Germany had a similar reckoning at institutional level. A sitting vice president of the German Football Association went to the press directly and said the time had come to seriously consider a boycott. He invoked the 1980 Moscow Olympics. He asked publicly whether the comparison was fair. The DFB executive met formally and released a statement confirming Germany would attend, but the fact that a senior federation official needed to raise the question at all, and the fact that the organization felt compelled to respond with a formal public statement, tells you the conversation inside German football was not hypothetical or fringe. Even former FIFA president Sepp Blatter told fans to stay away from the United States entirely. Why is Europe rejecting Infantino's $11 billion show? Because behind the scenes, UEFA and the players themselves just launched the biggest revolt this sport has seen in decades. Stay with this. Because the revolt has two fronts, one on the pitch and one that nobody outside football's inner circles was supposed to see. Start with what is happening to the players' bodies. Climate researchers warned FIFA months before this tournament began that several U.S. host cities would experience dangerous heat during the competition window. This was not a vague concern. It was specific, documented, and delivered with enough advance notice to actually change something. FIFA's response was a mandatory 3-minute hydration break in each half of every match. That is the entire institutional answer to a heat risk serious enough that sports scientists felt compelled to raise it publicly before a ball was even kicked. 3 minutes, while the underlying decision to schedule matches in those exact cities during those exact months remained completely unchanged. You do not solve a structural problem with a stoppage clock. So the players did something FIFA could not simply schedule around. Dozens of them signed a formal open letter. Not a tweet. Not a quote pulled from a post-match interview. A coordinated, written statement demanding FIFA go further on heat protocols and raising something bigger than any single match. The letter pointed directly at the format itself. A 48-team tournament spread across an entire continent, requiring extensive air travel between host cities separated by thousands of miles, with recovery windows compressed by a fixture list built for broadcast convenience, rather than human physiology. Read between those lines and the message is unmistakable. To FIFA, these players are gladiators performing on a stage built for revenue. Their health is simply content, something to broadcast, not something to protect. Sports science staff across multiple federations have privately described the combination of extreme heat exposure and extensive cross-continental travel as a level of cumulative physical strain previous World Cups never required. It is not any single factor in isolation that worries them. It is the stacking of every demand at once, heat the body has to fight through, distances the body has to recover from, and a fixture calendar that gives players less time between those two burdens than any tournament in recent memory. When the people whose entire job is protecting athletes' bodies start raising alarms this directly, that is not players being dramatic, that is a warning sign FIFA chose to address with a stoppage clock instead of a schedule change. Now look at the political war happening at the same time. Because this is where the story turns from a complaint into a full institutional rebellion. 8 UEFA delegates walked out of a FIFA Council meeting earlier this year. Not a quiet abstention. A visible, deliberate departure from the room where football's most powerful decisions get made, a signal that European football's patience with FIFA's governance had run out in a way that could no longer be expressed through statements alone. Then came the moment that crystallized everything. Omar Artan, the Confederation of African Football's best referee in 2025, selected by FIFA itself through a rigorous merit process, was held for 11 hours at Miami Airport, questioned about a terrorist organization instead of his football credentials, and sent home. FIFA's president's response, when asked what his organization had done about it, was to tell the people asking him to chill and relax. UEFA's response was the opposite of chill. Within hours, UEFA announced it had appointed Artan to officiate the 2026 UEFA Super Cup final, Paris Saint-Germain against Aston Villa, in Salzburg, on August 12. He will become the first African referee ever to lead a major UEFA final. That appointment was not sympathy. It was a calculated institutional slap directed squarely at FIFA's chill and relax, delivered through the biggest stage European football could offer on short notice. So here is the complete picture forming around this tournament. Players collapsing in heat that climate scientists predicted months in advance, given a 3-minute pause instead of a real solution. European fans who can afford the trip more easily than ever, choosing in large numbers to stay home. A national federation's vice president openly discussing boycott. A former FIFA president telling people to avoid the host country entirely. 8 delegates walking out of a council meeting. And UEFA handing one of its biggest honors to the exact official FIFA abandoned. This is not scattered discontent. This is a coordinated reckoning arriving from every direction at once. From the players whose bodies make the sport possible, from the fans whose loyalty funds it, and from the continental institution that built the game FIFA now profits from. Modern football is dying in the hands of a corporation that cannot fill its own stadiums and cannot protect the players who make those stadiums worth filling in the first place. $11 billion in projected revenue means nothing if the people who make football worth watching, the players, the fans, the officials, stop trusting the organization that runs it. So tell me what you think in the comments. Is this open letter and this boycott talk and this walkout the beginning of the revolt that finally ends FIFA's unchecked control of the World Cup, or will the football itself, once it truly gets going, wash all of this away the way it always has before? Like this video if you want the full picture instead of the broadcast version. Subscribe. We are tracking every empty flight, every boycott conversation, and every player who speaks up until the final whistle on July 19th. Football is never just a tournament. It is a test of whether the people who make this sport possible still believe in the organization running it. And right now, that belief is collapsing in real time.